I've literally been waiting years for this. It's one of the most exciting pieces of news to hit the Ethereum network since the merge, when Ethereum was first transitioning from proof of work to proof of stake. And that's because the Ethereum developers have announced that they are targeting March to allow users to unstake their Ethereum for the first time ever in what's going to be known as the Shanghai upgrade. Happy New Year. We're doubling down in crypto in 2023. And I think one of the biggest narratives leading up to March is going to be on liquid staking derivatives. So we're going to give you an overview of all these different projects such as Lido, RocketPool, StakeWise, Frax, and even talk about potentially some Ethereum arbitrage opportunities. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. I am Crypto with Nick, and I cover everything from DeFi, NFTs, and Web3. So be sure to hit that like button. Please subscribe and come join the completely free Discord. Timestamps are below. Let's get into today's video. This entire narrative and thesis on liquid staking derivatives really depends on allowing users to unstake their ETH from Ethereum. So huge shout out to Tim Bako, one of the more prominent figures in Ethereum, who went ahead and put together this all-cores dev update 14. Now, we're not going to read through this whole thing because I think for the purpose of this video, what's captured perfectly almost in the first few sentences, which is here that the main feature of the upgrade is the introduction of the beacon chain withdrawal for stakers, and that getting this out ASAP is something that client teams don't want to compromise on, meaning that they are going to make this the priority feature for the next upgrade set in March. Now that we know that users are going to be able to allow to unstake their Ethereum, let's kind of go over what the liquid staking derivative landscape really looks like. So we can see here right now that there is almost 16 million Ethereum staked and deposited, and that equals about 13% of Ethereum's current circulating supply. And while there's many big players that offered liquid staking, there's one in particular that has a majority market share here, and that's actually going to be Lido, capturing almost 30% of all liquid staked Ethereum. A lot of people have concerns with this, allowing one entity to grow their market share so significantly that I think by the time that people are allowed to unstake, you're going to see quite a bit of reshuffling here. If we take a look at this chart here, we can see who holds the most staked ETH. Of course, we have Lido as number one. We have a lot of different centralized exchanges, things like Coinbase, Kraken, and Binance. And then you have a bunch of different players, and we're really going to be focusing on 4 different players in this video today. And the 4 that I think you should be really paying attention to and dive into looking for opportunity are going to be Lido, RocketPool, StakeWise, and Frax. And while they all provide the same end goal, letting people stake their Ethereum, they all do it slightly differently. So I made this quick cheat sheet kind of chart to give you a quick comparison overview of all these different projects. Let's start with the first biggest one, which is going to be Lido, almost $1 billion market cap. And when you deposit your ETH with Lido, you're given a liquid staking derivative known as STETH. And this is a single token design, meaning as you hold STETH in your wallet, you're essentially given rebases, the rewards, more STETH airdrop to you directly into your wallet. And by choosing to stake with Lido, you're going to see about a 4.4% APR right now. And you can see they have over 4 million staked ETH with over 144,000 validators. Next, let's look at RocketPool, much smaller market cap, only 216 million, and is going to be, I think, the project that I focus on the most for my own investment opportunities, but I'll go into more of that a little bit later. So here we have the same thing. You deposit ETH, receive an LSD in return, and that's going to be RETH. Again, single token design, but with RETH, it's always going to appreciate in value when compared to ETH, right? That's the way that it accumulates all of its staking rewards. And you can actually get APRs in 2 different formats here. You can just stake your ETH, or you can essentially stake and run a validator node. Right now, they have a little bit around 337,000 ETH, right? Significantly less than something like Lido, and run about 10,000 validators. Next, we have StakeWise, which is actually going to be a much higher beta play to this entire narrative and thesis, right? Only 12 million market cap, extremely thin liquidity, only around 4 million. And this is the first time that we actually see the dual token design, where you have your staked ETH, and then you also have the ETH given to you when you receive your rewards, right? And this is going to be around, similarly, 4.48% APR. Again, only around 69,000 staked ETH, right? Significantly less than the other players. And we can see here they're running about 2,000 validators. Next, we have Frax Finance, the newest player to enter the arena. Frax Finance has a ton of different product offerings already, everything from AMMs to swaps to their own stablecoin. So the market cap's a little bit bigger, around 300 million. Again, we have this dual token design where you have Frax ETH and then stake Frax ETH, right? And with your staking rewards, they're able to pay you 7.8%. And we'll dive into how they're doing that a little bit later. You can see here, they've launched it about a month ago, already 46,000 staked ETH, right? Growing really exponentially. But you can see here about 1,100 validators so far. Let's start with the number one player and dive into Lido Finance. So if you've never seen their site, we're here on their homepage. And if you actually scroll down, you can see that they actually support quite a few different networks, right? They do support Ethereum, which we've talked about a little bit, providing that 4.4% APR, but they also have incentive alliance with many other ecosystems, such as Solana, Polygon, Polkadot, and Kusama. Now, the Lido token itself is simply just a governance token. There's no revenue sharing or fee splitting, but that hasn't stopped them from raising hundreds of millions of dollars from the world's top venture capital. So let's take a look a little bit on how these tokens are being allocated. So if we take a look at it, we can see that about 4.2% of the supply is still locked, meaning most of the tokens have vested, and that is good news. But what has a lot of people, including myself, concerned is the allocation. We can see here that the team and validators got 40%. That the DAO treasury has 25%, and that investors have 35%, meaning this token is heavily allocated to both investors and insiders. If we take a look at this schedule, we can see that a lot of the vesting really started around December of 2021, and that if we look at things today, a majority of these tokens are being unlocked. If we scroll down a little bit, we can track some different investors, and we can see, for example, things like Verify Capital, which does have an unlocking period that doesn't really start till December of 2022. Now, Lido, without a doubt, is one of the best solutions available, and that's why it's been able to capture over 30% of all market share, right? But one of the biggest concerns that I have is Stanny here, who is one of the top investors, completely sold out of his 2 million Lido allocation with an average selling price of $1.21. And this gives me some concern because that means that insiders don't really see significant upside. But again, it is a bear market, so maybe investors are looking to secure an exit while they still can. So my goal is to add Lido to my portfolio and make it a smaller way of my overall LSD allocations. It is the best in breed, and I do want to bet on that. It also has the most partnerships when it comes to DeFi and opportunities when it comes to things like staking and lending and these different activities. Next, we're going to talk about RocketPool, which is right now my personal favorite. But again, be sure to follow me on Twitter or come join the Discord because I'm diving into this. I'm learning so much. So as I learn more, I'd love to share through those channels. But one of my favorite things about RocketPool is they actually have two different programs here. You can stake and run a node with only 16 ETH to get started, which is pretty cool. And you can see here, you can earn about 6.61% APR, or of course, you can just stake your ETH, and this is going to give you about 3.97% APR, which of course is still very competitive. But when we looked at Lido, their token is simply just a governance token, but RocketPool has its own token as well, known as RPL. And here is slashing insurance for our ETH, as well as of course, protocol governance, Oracle node bonds, and again, extra node rewards. So remember, RETH value rewards gain over time based on the performance of these node operators. We can see here that right now, one RETH is worth about 1.05 ETH. And if we look at the token RPL, another thing that it has going for it is that when depositing ETH, node operators must also deposit a minimum amount of RPL to act as collateral in case they incur any of these penalties. It kind of looks like this. You deposit 16 ETH plus RPL, and in return, of course, you're given RPLs plus those ETH rewards. And this is how you're able to get those boosted rewards by deciding to run a node. I also came across this recent update from RocketPool intern where they're sharing some new features, and they're going to have something known as an upgrade called Atlas. And this is actually going to lower the operating node requirements from 16 ETH to 8 ETH, which is going to allow them to garner more market share because there's of course significantly more participants in the market that have maybe just 8 ETH rather than the full 16 needed to kind of engage in the existing requirements. And RocketPool intern points out that they'll have an official guide later this month, but there's an unofficial good guide floating around that we can kind of click on and quickly scroll through. The ideal one that's going to help them gain more market share is less ETH bonded mini pools. And you can see here they've done a ton of research of lowering the requirement from 16 ETH to potentially even as low as 4 ETH. The next thing is going to be establishing staking as a service, which is going to allow things like whales or institutions to get involved and of course stake their Ethereum. The third item that I'm really excited for is integrated solar staking migration. This is going to allow people to convert their existing validators into RocketPool, which of course is going to again help them capture more of that market share by making that more seamlessly. With all the updates coming to RocketPool, as well as their overall tokenomics and design, it's going to be the largest part at this time, I believe, of my liquid staking derivatives portfolio. Next, we have StakeWise, which is the smallest competitor in the landscape and possibly presents the most potential upside due to its small market cap. But that also, of course, means that there's a risk that come along with it. StakeWise even offers the option to join a staking pool, deposit ETH together and share a validator, no limit, stake any amount. Of course, you can track your earnings and use your stake in DeFi. StakeWise also has a token known as SWISE, and we can see here that the allocation 50% to the community. Pretty cool here. We of course have just 2% for future fundraising, makes complete sense. Of course, we have investors at 25% and then the founders at 21%. Out of the 1 billion tokens, we can see that the community has a 4-year vesting cycle. Investors have a 6-month cliff plus 18-month linear vesting. Team 6-month cliff, 42-month linear vesting. And of course, the fundraising is available immediately, but of course only represents a small amount, about 2%. You can kind of look at things representative on this chart here. One of the things that's really cool about StakeWise is this dual token model because it separates your staked ETH from the rewards. See, the biggest problem with something like Lido is that you can't actually use it in DeFi without giving up your rebases. That with StakeWise, you have SETH for staked ETH and then RETH for reward ETH. And this allows you to separate your holdings into different risk asset class and avoid impermanent loss when providing liquidity, things like farming or lending and stuff like that. And what's really interesting is that StakeWise actually just released this thread 2 days ago that the SWISE tokenomics is looking to be revamped and is waiting further discussion. So everything I just said could slightly change. And also, it looks like they're going to be coming up with a new V3 upgrade in 2023. StakeWise has actually released their V3 migration plan and it's extremely detailed. I don't want to dive into the whole thing in this video because I think it will just make this video too long, but we can scroll down here to something known as the big picture. We can see here that the first layer is, of course, to deposit ETH into vaults, and this will create, of course, these StakeWise vaults, which then will allow these vaults to stake their ETH with the beacon chain, which is the proof of stake network. And then the second layer is you can mint something known as OS ETH for the liquid staking. They claim that their dual token model is going to produce the highest yield, right? They mentioned that it allows stakers to swap rewards ETH into staked ETH principal for a compounding effect, and also helps with this 5% dilution of profitability for new stakers in pools. I'm really going to be paying attention to StakeWise V3 and seeing how the team ships and delivers on this. It's also going to represent a smaller portion of my portfolio for liquid staking, and that's because it's such a small market cap, only 12 million. So if this team can pick up any momentum, right, things are going to do extremely well. And of course, the opposite can happen. If the team fails to deliver, then you might see, of course, this project kind of crater in. And the last LSD I'm interested in is going to be Frax Finance. I did an entire overview of the Frax Finance ecosystem in my last YouTube video, so be sure to check that out. But again, let's kind of talk about their latest staked ETH now that it's been live for about a month. Frax Finance also uses a dual token design similar to that of StakeWise, and right now if you stake your Frax, you can earn about 7.8% APR, which is significantly higher than any other competitor. I love how easy the team makes everything. Again, we have almost 1,200 validators, and we have about 3 pending that they're looking to set up, and you can even click on things like the validator details, and it gives you a whole list of their status, their balance, how much earnings they make, and it's just really cool to see all this transparency put into one nice dashboard for you. To understand how it's able to achieve a bit higher APR, you really have to kind of go back and understand that Frax Finance has some of the deepest liquidity on Curve and controls a lot of the emissions. Huge shout out to Winter Soldier. We can see here by redirecting Frax ETH holders to be liquidity providers on things like Curve and Frax Finance, they successfully incubated stake Frax ETH staking yield by increasing its ETH holdings for validated rewards without diluting the reward distribution. Because of this 2-token model, they're able to go ahead and provide these higher emission, right? Frax ETH is kind of acts as the stablecoin loosely pegged to ETH. And then stake Frax ETH is the version which actually accrues the staking yield. And the token for this whole project is actually going to be the FXS token, which is kind of the token for the entire enterprise that Frax Finance has built with all these different products and offerings. Time for a quick recap of everything we covered. We covered 4 major competitors in the liquid staking derivative landscape, and that's going to be Lido, Frax Finance, RocketPool, and StakeWise. And at this moment, I'm looking to allocate overweight my portfolio towards RocketPool and still a healthy amount of allocation for Lido and Frax, as well as a little bit less for StakeWise, just given how small the market cap is and how thin the liquidity is. It really doesn't need much for this project to either boom or bust. Out of all of them, again, Lido is the clear winner to date, but really take a look out for things as we approach March, because I believe you're going to start to see a bunch of this Ethereum start to be withdrawn from Lido and reshuffled into these other projects that might have gone with this dual token model or have offered other upgrades and features, kind of making it more attractive to stake with them. The video went a little bit longer than I had hoped, but I hope you enjoy kind of getting the overview of the LSD landscape, as I think it's going to be a huge narrative as we approach March. So if you have any questions or would love to chat about this, be sure again to join the free Discord, drop a comment below. See you in the next one. Cheers and happy farming.